Hello, everybody. Welcome to the podcast. God, it's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah, it's been busy, hasn't it? Always is busy. I'm 52. Life is never not busy when you're 52. I didn't know that was going to be the plan, but there you go. And this was recorded a while ago. So Aaron Fisher was one of the few people doing magic memberships when I first launched Card Magic course, which became onlinemagic.co. Have a look at that, why don't you? And if you're watching this, listening to this even, before Black Friday or around the Black Friday weekend, there's a little deal. Have a look at my socials, have a look at the channel, and do sign up to my mailing list as well. Anyway, there'll be links. However, Aaron Fisher, as I said, was one of the few people doing it and a big inspiration to me. And I'd never chatted to him. It was so strange. And I don't even think we've had that many emails or anything. And it just seemed like such a natural person to talk to. And I did my usual thing of saying, let's not chat too much beforehand. Let's just open it up. And I knew straight away, even beforehand, we'd emailed back and forth, and his emails had such a warm feel to them and a kind, generous feel. You can always tell, can't you? And as soon as we started chatting, it was like we both had a lot to say and we both had a lot in common. And it was just such a lovely, open and generous conversation. I hope you find the same. I feel like, sometimes you have conversations with people and you feel like you've made a friend, which I know sounds like I'm a 6-year-old, but it really did. And we talk about lots in this. Lovely Stuart Davis, who edits this for me, has actually written the thing, because I always forget what we talk about and I can't bear to listen to myself. So I'm just going to read some of them out, because I'm not good at pretending I'm not reading when I am. Staying interested in finding the balance. These are the topics we cover and more. Learning new skills, myths around talent, magics. Nature is disguised. And I do remember that conversation. The nature of the magic that we do. Gravity half pass. Aaron's amazing move. The importance of finding good community. Finding self-acceptance is part of the process. And there was a lot of that in this. There was a lot of, we've both been doing this a long time, and how do you stay fresh, and what changes do you go through, and how do you start seeing your magic differently? Because, he's been teaching for, I can't even add it up, but 25 years at least, I think. Maybe 20, maybe 18, I don't know. But I'm performing for a lot before that. And his book, The Paper Engine, we didn't talk about a lot, but do check that out. In this, we do talk about Aaron's free M course or membership or offer. He's got it's a program, that's what it is, with an E on the end, a program that he opens up every now and then. That is probably a bit dated now, but there will be another one, so it's still going to be relevant when the next free M, he lets a certain amount of people in. It's like a coaching program. So yeah, sorry about that, but it will still give you the insight and the idea of what it is. The brilliance of Alan Moore. Yeah, and we talked about TV and Netflix, things that we love. And there was some, I always remember him talking on another podcast to, because I do my research a little bit, about Wolf Hall. So I'm going to start that. That's what I'm going to start. And he's a bit of an Anglophile, which I thought was really lovely. So that's just a fraction of what we talk about. Sorry it's been a while. I've said yes to too many things, and I did a talk and I was working on it obsessively, and I wrote like a 30-minute script and kept to the script. And for someone like me with ADHD, which we always also talk about, that's just the most difficult thing. It was rewarding but mind-numbingly boring, but really difficult but satisfying. And it was. I kind of remembered pretty much the whole script. I waffled a bit, as I am now. But yeah, but that took all my time. And then at the end of that, I thought, oh my gosh, I haven't done anything for 4 days now. Like 500 emails to answer, which I still haven't got around to. Apologies if you have emailed me. Feel free to do it again and nudge me. I do get rather overwhelmed. But yeah, so this is a lovely one. Please, I will say this, you have no idea how important it is. I'm like a broken record, everybody that does a podcast. When you put this stuff out there, it is a bit like pissing in the wind. and quite rightly, people aren't in a situation to give you immediate feedback. You're listening to this on the road and not in a position where you're going to pick up your phone and follow a link and leave a review. But if you can, that would just... I read them all. Well, it doesn't take long. I get loads of brilliant feedback. So I know I'm on the right... And, and the people that do the podcast, I listened to this one, it was great. So I am very blessed to be able to talk to these people. And I think we all are to be able to listen to them. So if you could share it on social media... It's now called Steve Faulkner Podcast because we've had Mick, stand-up comedian, and Jay, juggler, and that's really exciting that it opens it out to everybody so we can talk about magic as a reference point as well. So thanks very much. And also, please check out onlinemagic.co. It might be too late, but until Sunday, whatever it'll be, 30th of November, there is going to be an offer on. Do have a look at social media, my Instagram at Steve Faulkner. And at Real Magic Review, I'm putting more on there. And on Facebook, Steve Faulkner's Magic with an apostrophe because it's my magic. And it sort of means I am magic, doesn't it? Look how clever I am doing that. That's my Facebook page for magicians, which I'm always sort of also trying to revive. Oh, and obviously Real Magic Review. I'm going to be putting the video of the deal, the Black Friday deal on there. So you'll be able to have a look there. But I think it's stevefaulkner.com/Black Friday, one word, -magic. stevefaulkner.com/Black Friday -magic. And you get a super deal. It's a super duper deal. And I don't really do Black Friday things, but I wanted to this month this year because I'm going to put a lot more work into the course. So there you go. At the moment, you get the Royal Road course for that as well. Within that, maybe not forever, but if you get in, you can download it, whatever. So go for it. Also, the sound in the last one, as I mentioned before with Mix, was a bit shonky. I've no idea why. I still haven't got to the bottom of it. I think it's better now. Nothing seems to have changed other than the outcome. So that's good, isn't it? So the sound should be better from this point onward. If it's not, I'll apologise in advance if we get gremlins again. So apologies for this one. The sound is a little bit shonky on my side. All right, I'm going to stop banging on now. Thanks a lot. Here's Aaron Fisher.
Would I put the money in the envelope that says it's got nothing in it? That seems a little bit too obvious, but maybe it's a double bluff. Double bluff. Double bluff. Double bluff. Double bluff. Double bluff. Would I put the money in the envelope that says it's got nothing in it? That seems a little bit too obvious, but maybe it's a double bluff.
And you do all kinds of things. You're a real general practitioner, aren't you?
Yeah, I don't know if that's a good thing. I do too many things, and I'm trying to not. I'm trying to now say to myself, no more things. So it's a balance, right? It's a balance between staying interested, and I can't do the same thing, I couldn't just do the one thing, but it's staying interested, but not keep going, I'm going to now become a professional piano player, at the age of 52.
I know how hard it was for me, like when I think about playing an instrument or something, all those things that make like a whole person, I think, wow, I know how hard it was to get halfway competent at one thing. And that's not even in the world of magic. That's not magic. That's one little aspect of magic. And when you think about, of course, like I see with a lot of our club members, people aren't necessarily taking up a passion at our age. You have to get beyond the fact that you're starting too late to be a concert pianist. You're not learning at 4. So it's not about that anymore. And one of the things that I admire so much about a lot of our members is that they're doing so beautifully and they're getting so much out of it and they're giving so much magic. But none of them would ever even start down that royal road, as we can see behind you there. They wouldn't even do that if they were afraid about never being really capital G great at something like we all feel like when we're 15, hey, anything's possible. And you get so far from that ignorance, that confidence plus naivete drives so much progress that you would never get if you had reality firmly in your mind like we do when we're grown-ups.
I know. And my problem is, I think that I have to check in with that consciously quite often. I have to tell myself that, because I get the impression you're like me and you discovered that regardless, I mean, talent, I'm not saying talent doesn't exist, but with hard work and passion, you can get pretty much world class at anything, right? If you have that passion and want with work. So I have to really, I mean, there's stuff that I've been practicing for 6, 7, 8 years now that I'm starting to get. So I'm not quitting that, but the thing now has to be right. That is going in the show, right? Because I need to justify that. I don't, because I love doing it. But I think you're right. I think we both have communities, which I'm so interested. You were a huge inspiration for me back in the day, which I've never spoken to you about because we've never spoken, with CC, Conjuror Community. That now there's great joy in, yes, striving to improve, but not for there to necessarily be a goal of I'm doing it for this. And then the weird thing is, right, that sometimes you get to a point you go, hang on a minute, I've been doing this for fun, but I'm kind of good at this now. And whatever that means, and that can mean different things to different people. But I think there's a real lovely, almost Zen thing to, no, I'm just doing this now. I'm never going to read all my books, but I'm just going to pick one up and read a bit of it,
You have to replace your power source. Like whatever's driving you when you're an adolescent, if it's still what's driving you 30 years later, something's probably out of balance. So you have to replace that inefficient, powerful power source with a healthier, more natural power source, a slightly different intention, and then still find out. It's like your ambition has to change and become more about getting the most out of your life and less about any external thing. One thing you said, Steve, that I just think is, I don't want to leave it yet. You talked about I read somewhere, and I think it might have been in an acting book by David Mamet when I was in school. I was fascinated with Ricky Jay and all that stuff, and I was going to school for theater. And you just, what he wrote in that book all those years ago was that talent is just one of those incredibly unuseful words. And that it's a word we all use for the reason we can't do something. No one ever uses the word talent as a reason they can do something.
Yeah.
You use talent to describe this ethereal thing someone else has. That's the reason you can't possibly achieve or go after your wholesome little dream, which is just to be as simple as to live your life and do the best you can. And talent always seems to come up in unhelpful contexts because, people say, well, you practice because you're talented. And I say, well, it didn't feel that way. It felt like if I got good at all, it's because I loved practicing and I was not interested in being told why I couldn't do it. So the truth is, I think if we get rid of that word, realize, like you said, everyone has enough aptitude. There's so many different power centers in magic. Technique is a power source, but it's just one power source. Presentation is a power source. Being in front of people and feeling that kinetic energy is a power source. Thinking about structure is a power source. And we each have different ones that come to us from the factory. And it's always a different one. And there's always other things to put together so that your power source can drive the car. It's still got to have wheels on it. You have to get the other things so they're not in your way. But everyone's got enough going on in enough of those places, something driving them, that you can put together magic. You can't necessarily be Steve Forty or Chris Kenner, but that's not the goal anyway, right? The goal is to figure out what your combination is that works for you that brings you to your best self, and find a way to make it work. And so, like you say, everyone's got enough aptitude in these areas that you can find a way forward if you develop the right attitude and have the right intention and work in it for the right reasons in the right way. You can move forward and you can find a way to do it that makes you feel incredibly joyful and proud of yourself. You know, it's a beautiful thing, magic. But magic, one of the things I love about it, you know, I spent time with Larry Jennings when he was really sick and he wasn't able to do a lot of stuff anymore. But he was like a plumber. So he was like a tradesman, you know, and he didn't go to art school. He didn't go to film school, you know. And there's all these guys, John Ramsey, all of these wonderful magicians. I'm not sure they got into magic with the idea that it was a fine or performing art. I'm not sure a lot of these guys used that word. I think maybe it was a hobby, maybe it was a passion, maybe they took it seriously, but they didn't have to frame it. You know, magic is this beautiful disguised, it's like a mushroom. It's like a gem in a pile of poop. You know, magic is the kind of thing where it's so undercover. Its nature is so disguised from the everyday world that you can find it as a hobby or a game or as a bit of fun, as perhaps the English say. And it doesn't matter, you know. So what we find is all these people in magic that never went to art school, don't have wouldn't necessarily feel comfortable with any of those characterizations. And they can do magic so beautifully and discover their own internal artist and creativity from any place. You can start from any place and get into magic. And it's kind of, to me, it's one of those beautiful things about magic.
I think you're right. And I've really, being a gentleman of a certain age, I'm
very dashing.
Thank you very much. I've really been, I think in the last even 6 months to a year, I've been really looking at what my intention and how it changes, right? How it changes, you know, when you, the classic thing is you get into magic, even subconsciously, you may get into magic because you can connect with people. They might think you're cool. People, it'll give you an identity. And I think that was it for me. But I also had to do that thing of love the process, which very early on I discovered that process of learning anything. But that intention changes over time. And I think that the realization, that you don't have to be Chris Kenner, Steve 40 to be able to perform if that's what you want to do. You don't have to have a perfect double. You don't have to, you know, you need to be able to do it. But I think sometimes this is what I tend to lecture about, is that it's okay to be flawed, not so flawed that you're flashing every trick and everybody knows what you're doing. But we're all flawed. It's impossible
not to be flawed.
It's impossible not to be flawed, right? So, and I think that's one of the healthy things, one of the very few healthy things that have come out of social media, because we see now the human side of those people that we would idolize. And I think about imposter syndrome a lot, because so many people say, oh, that's a thing, right? I got that, you know. And it's like, we have it because we see the people, not just in magic, but everything. We see the tip of the iceberg. We see these people succeeding, and we don't see the story. We don't see the work or the grit and the failures. So then we feel subhuman compared to them, because we think, oh, it must be talent, right? It must be this thing that they've got.
And we buy the illusion that we've all put together.
Yeah, absolutely. So that vulnerability you said, I think, is so important. You know, there's a time and a place for it, but to feel that, and I get this with my community, and I'm sure you do with yours, that people get frustrated that, you know, they can't do this, a move in a certain way because they've seen someone do it a certain way. It could be all gravity half pass, you know, and they can't go. And well, the one thing is they're seeing it from their own perspective, right? So nothing looks good when you know what's happening, right? The gravity half pass is such a good example of that. I remember this. I wasn't going to say this. It's just popped into my head now. I was learning that thing years ago, and I saw you do it on the video, and nothing's happening. And I said to someone, I'm trying to get this thing, but I just can't get it. And they said, well, what did you do? Because I didn't see anything. So I'm seeing all this work, right? Because I'm feeling it. I know what's happening. And they're seeing,
It's like a duck,
they're a
right?
magician.
It's like a duck paddling underwater.
Yeah. Yeah. So we need people to remind us sometimes.
I feel like one of the beautiful things about community is that you do need to surround yourself with loving people. We all need to, when you meet these magicians who you admire, and they've all started as insecure kids, and the really good ones have put together this wonderful illusion of being a finished something. And that's the effect. That's what we call the effect writ large. That's Vernon. That's being natural. That's be yourself. That's the effect. We all learn to get on stage without showing the dirty. We keep the dirty side down, right? That's magic, but it's an illusion because I had this terrible performance anxiety for years. I would get up to lecture, and I wanted to open with that gravity half pass stuff because that was the stuff that was going to excite everyone. But I was nervous, I was terrified. And I began to tell myself a story that I just don't have it. I see Bill Malone. He doesn't have this problem. I mean, it's what we're talking about. You see these personas of these completed people. And of course, once you're in magic a bit longer, and one of the beautiful things about magic is you get to connect with your heroes. And sometimes that's good and sometimes that's bad, but it's very healthy if you can handle what you learn from it. And I really told myself, I had this running story in my head, and to thank you again, I'm only encouraged to speak this way because of the vulnerability you show when you speak, and it makes it very clear to me where you're coming from, and that's something I try and do. It doesn't help our members or anyone to invest in that idea that there's something special, talent, that's that magic word again, that allows you not to have to move forward when you're scared. And I told myself, well, if I can't, because there's nothing quite as depressing or unsettling for an audience as a shaking sleight of hand artist. There's nothing quite so demoralizing for the audience. They feel terrible for you, and you feel pretty terrible for yourself. And I grew to look at it as a condition. There's a couple things here because this is something I think we all experience. And I hate to be picking on Bill Malone, but we all imagine Bill Malone doesn't have that problem. And the reason I'm mentioning Bill Malone was because he was that guy for me.
Me too.
He was that guy that I told my story about. And the first thing I did was I started putting a search and destroy at the front of the show. And where the audience does it. They cut the deck. And you do some Paul Curry-esque babbling to make it sound like nothing's happening or they're shuffling or something. And it allowed me to talk to people and get settled in. And lo and behold, that helped. And so I began to view it, first of all, as a condition, like diabetes, like something you would have to make concessions to and work with, but you could live your life with it. Because the other big thing I learned about that is a couple things, and I hope this is really useful for people, because if you have that problem, you're not alone. You're just not. It's part of it. And learning to work with it is part of it. And this is another reason doing simple sleight of hand well is plenty difficult. It's all about these negotiations, with yourself and the situation to move forward now. The first thing is it's adrenaline. And adrenaline makes you shake. And you can't maintain that level of flight or fright reaction chemically for a long time. So if you're working the Magic Castle, you can be as nervous as hell Monday night. By the end of the night, it's gone. Then you come back Tuesday and it's like Monday, but a little less. But by Wednesday or Thursday, you don't have the juice anymore. You just literally don't have the chemical in your body. So that's one reason that working a lot and regularly is a great way to tamp down that feeling and make it start to recede. And so there's all kinds of ways of working with it, doing material that makes you feel safe, finding a way to connect with the audience that allows you not to, because a lot of us, when we're starting, we're so engaged with what we're trying to do and get away with. One of the healthiest things we can do is build the material and choose material that isn't threatening to us that way, so that we can get comfortable, work with people, and then sort of as that comfort level changes, add in things once there's no longer stress. It's all part of it. The other thing is, humans take a long time to incubate and grow, but magicians take longer. So it's not uncommon to see a magician who's very serious about magic around on the scene for 10 years before they ever do a show. It takes longer to put it all together and find a way to start stepping forward with all of these different things you have to learn. You mentioned this before, working with magic and discovering how much you loved it. For me, magic was the process of teaching yourself how to learn something hard.
Yeah.
And it's bit by bit. It's finding a way to tack forward when you can't go in a straight line, and discovering what it's going to take to get you forward toward that direction. And this was another weird thing. One more thing I'll say about this is I was really having a crisis about whether I could do magic in my 20s for a living. Paper Engine was out. It was clear that I needed and wanted to do magic. And I kept telling myself, if you're just going to shake, how can you do this for a living? And I was working with it in all these ways. But I got this weird little vibe that I was having a dialogue with the part of me that thought it could scare me off. And maybe this is my imagination, maybe. It's all in your mind. Of course, that's where the big battle is played out. But at some point I said to myself, Self said, huh? I said, Self, we're going to do this if we have to shake every night for the rest of our life. And then I was able to start making those decisions to work with it. But the first stipulation was negotiations are fine, but quitting isn't.
Yep.
And once I made that decision firmly to myself, it began to recede in a way almost immediately. You still have to work with it. You still have nights with butterflies. You still have to pick your material carefully. And often, a little addendum here, a lot of times your terror of performing at the beginning is merely wisdom telling you you're not prepared. If you're not prepared, if you don't know what you're going to say, if you don't know what you're going to do, if you don't know how to deal with the moments that make it worse, you have to make decisions about those things. And there's a great many decisions you have to make about every single layer of magic before all that's left is good old-fashioned butterflies.
There is so much there. We are totally singing from the same sheet. It's great to hear you talk, and I didn't know we were going to get into this. It's something that I think is one of the most important aspects of all of it. There's a couple of things. That acceptance. I get a lot of questions, as you will. How do I stop the handshaking? How do I, my thing is, well, if I'm doing something new that I'm not sure about, I get the handshake. I get the handshake pretty much only now to people that I know. Right. Mm-hmm. So if I'm showing friends, because I just can't get into that zone. Right. I can't. It's just the weirdest thing. Been doing the cups and balls for 25 years. And if you start getting into performance mode, they're like, why are you talking to me like that? It's just the weirdest thing. So I get really weird about it. And it's usually because they've asked me, well, I don't really want to do it, all that kind of thing. That acceptance is something that is such a part of the process. And a big realization for me was that when I was running leadership courses, I would take them through the learning cycle, one of the models, right? That unconscious competence, all that one.
Oh yeah, and unconscious competence, right?
Yeah, it's so useful. Yeah. How do you feel in that zone? How do you feel when you start understanding what you can't do, and then you understand that other people around you might be able to do it, and et cetera, et cetera. But the thing I would try and say to people is that you can get to that unconscious competence when you're sitting on your own, you're doing the gravity half bars on your own with the music on. When you perform it, all of a sudden there's other stuff going on. Your senses are overridden with music, sound, and you're multitasking all of a sudden.
And human peoples, and actually people are there. Gee whiz.
Yeah, and they're going to talk to you, and they're going to interrupt you, and you go, and you can't learn that. You can't. I think you can only learn that by doing it. So that lack of preparation, I think there is. And don't get me wrong, I'm a terrible rehearser. I'm a good practicer, and I would say it's only in the last year that I've gone, I have to start rehearsing the routines I'm doing now, the newer ones, actually walking them through, which is purgatory, especially for the first half hour.
Oh, getting up on your feet. Oh, you're sweating in your own home.
Talking to yourself. It's just the weirdest thing, right? It's just the weirdest thing.
It's terrible. Yeah.
It's terrible, right? I don't know why. It's almost like it's anxiety. It's like, it's not just bad. It's just like it's wrong in so many ways. But then I found, because with the mentalism routines I'm doing now, I have to do that. I learned the hard way.
Yeah.
But then after half an hour, I would get into it wouldn't be flow like I'm practicing, but I'll get into a flow with it. And I think, but even with that, I would say with some card routines, you're still not going to be prepared because you haven't been in that situation. So accept it. And always say to people, if you're just starting to perform, whether it's a friend's family, you've never really shown anybody anything. The classic thing is I get, I'm doing my magic circle exam. I'm going to do this. And they list 5 tricks that I wouldn't even, after 30 years of doing those tricks, wouldn't even do in my exam. I'd go, no. Make it easy on yourself, right? Richard Osterlin would open with Bank Night because he knew, not saying but all he had to do was something incredibly simple, bang his thumb in an envelope, something out, just to, like you said, to start feeling it, to start getting into that zone. And I think that is so important to share. These things are so important to share. And what I don't hear enough of or read enough of in books and in teaching is that we've got to respect that what we're doing, even at its simplest form, is difficult. It is a difficult, challenging trick. It's do a double undercut.
Difficult.
Right?
Magic is hard.
Yeah, it's a really hard thing. And a self-working trick is hard. I think you say on Search and Destroy, which I watched the other day and had such a great time with it. And you were one of the few people that have said it. There's no such thing as a self-working trick. It was that thing of it, even if it's easy, it doesn't mean it doesn't need rehearsal and practice. You need to be unconscious at it, because for me, self-working tricks are harder because I've got to remember more.
Yeah, well, those mental routines, those verbal magic routines, all that language is so important. It's as important as it is in Shakespeare for different reasons.
Yeah.
It's hard. What I do tell people is that you're lying. I mean, look, if we go to a movie, we sit there, we buy our popcorn, and we're there to be entertained. Magic, you're dealing with a wide variety of people who, post-pandemic, don't know how to be an audience anyway. They haven't socialized. People are more alienated. Their attention is more fragmented than ever. You have to seize that attention. For people who often don't realize they're in a theatrical experience, you have to jack into, as we say in my course, 3M course, which we actually just opened registration for today, oddly enough, once a year. But you have to jack into that attention stream. You have to seize, like the outer limits, you have to seize control of the horizontal. You have to seize control of the vertical. You have to direct it all toward something that feels good. At the same time, you have to choreograph all kinds of sneaky, deceptive physical lies. You have to lie persuasively with your body in a believable, perfectly natural way so as to keep the attention feeling perfectly about that story or the effect. And you have to do it all in front of any infinite number of moving targets, different heights, different positions, different ages, different cultural backgrounds, different intelligences. And you have to weave all of that together in real time on the fly using your preparation. And it's hard. It's really hard. And a self-working trick is a beautiful thing because it lets you start learning about attention and presentation and all of that attention management that's just required to tell the story without experiencing the excessive load on your resources that comes with trying to do passes.
the
right?
invisible pass.
I'll tell you, man, in the 3M course, one of the best things we do that is the most eye-opening for people is we teach the crossing the cut force, which, as you know, is in a way a pass. And in another way, it's a move that people do in such a way where people watch you do it. You say, cut the deck. You complete the cut in this discrepant way. You then lose all definition in the force by distracting them for a minute about a trick to Siam. Then you have them look at the card. And so they're deceived, but not in a very clear way, right? I mean, Max Maven did it pretty great, but generally speaking, that scheme is about misdirection through time delay and coming so far away that when you come back, it doesn't occur to you that that's not what it should be. And what we do, though, is we learn, instead of you and I picking up the magic way or the 5 points in magic and trying to learn how to cross the gaze while you're switching a deck with 2 decks in your hand, which is how person like me first discovered those principles in trying to cover this crazy advanced shit, which incidentally, it's only being taught in the context of this crazy advanced shit. But that same exact methodology, looking here, open action, in transit action, as you look and gaze toward the object of the open action, you do the secret move in transit. That same thing can happen in the crosscut force, and it can eliminate the delay. And it lets you practice all of these beautiful, crucial attention management elements, which most of us don't even get a grasp on for 20 years, and learn them in the context you should, which is a simple secret action, which isn't even a secret action, right? Crossing the cut force doesn't have to be done, as we all know from what we first discovered, as a sleight. You just kind of do it and get away with it. But now if you start learning how to manage attention through that simple secret action, not a sleight, secret action. It's an open action that you don't want anyone to really register, right? It's a confidence builder. You start to learn how the pieces work together. But it blows my mind, Steve. No one teaches that way. Like, how are you supposed to learn it? How long after you heard the term open and in transit action did it take you to start to have any idea what that actually means?
So long. And I would say a good example for me as well is as someone who is starting to enjoy performing mentalism, and the one ahead, right? You hear people go, and then you just one ahead. My brain could not get a head around. I knew what it was. Obviously, I understood but I couldn't get my head around exactly what the mechanics. It's almost like the triumph, right? I did triumph for ages, and I didn't know why it worked. I was like, and then when you break it up and teach it, you go, well, of course that's happening, but you just do it. Well, the slop. Oh gosh, not slop force. What am I on about? Slip slop shuffle. What's the actual slop shuffle? Right, you do that. When I remember learning that and thinking, how is, but and I think, and that's fine because you might be someone that just wants to, first of all, get comfortable with learning anything. So maybe you don't have to delve into that. But I think with one ahead, I had these 3 bits of paper in front of me, and I couldn't verbalize what was happening, even though I kind of knew. And that's like that with the crosscut force. It's when you understand how the brain works, not on a deep level, but if you read some of the great books now on the psychology of magic and the science of magic, then that will also give you confidence because there's this other thing going on, which is empathy with how a person thinks and notices and that attention. And actually there's a kind of weird simplicity to it, even though we're talking about it now and it sounds...
Empathy for the human condition of information and memory.
Yeah, absolutely. And even as a magician, I'm quite easily fooled. If I see something that I haven't seen before, I mean, I do submit to it. I don't want to know what the twist is.
You
at the end
have
of
to
the movie.
submit to it, or else you can't be a human being or
Yeah,
even remember what your audience experiences, right?
absolutely. And that empathy, I think, comes through with teaching as well. It's understanding what it's like for someone learning something. And I really want you to talk about CC, Conjuring Community, and 3M. And this isn't why we're doing this. We haven't even discussed this.
Well, we've been talking about all these things. I mean, they're all what it's about. But you said something so interesting again that, it's related. And what I love about the conversation is 3M is a systematic way of learning these things, so that you see how it all comes together. And at the same time, you learn examples that you've probably seen before, but you learn how to see them in this, what I call integrated way. So you learn how, because there's a real problem. Like, we have to learn technique first. That Royal Road is a perfect example. In our minds, that book is a sleight, a trick, a sleight, a trick. Never mind the fact that they promised that. And in the very first overhand shuffle trick, the first thing they tell you is a cover reverse, which they don't name. They tell you to do that, but they don't mention it because it's right. But when we're starting, it feels good because what else is there but sleights and tricks? And trick is one of those vague words that talks about a combination of presentation and structure and attention management and technique. And so we're not even ready for years to even grasp that. We would not pick up the book if someone told us that was what it was. What you said, though, was about how deceptive it was, about how hard it was to penetrate the mechanisms of the one-ahead principle or the slop shuffle or anything else. We see this all the time with the passes, which, I wrote that book about half pass so many years ago. And a lot of people probably think that that's what I came here to talk about today if they're not in the CC aware place. But what I often feel is that, we see someone do a pass, or at least I did, and it looks like magic. And we say it's invisible. But in that very moment, we are transposing effect with method. It's the same reason why when we see a great demo about it, something that floats, the phone floats up to your hand, whatever it is. And then there's still part of us on some level that as soon as we see the hookup, as soon as we see the method, we're disappointed. And we can feel it. It's our inner child is disappointed because some part of us still kind of wanted to think it was magic. And when we see certain kinds of methods that are so pleasing and elegant and simple, we feel like we're not disappointed because we think, oh, it is magic.
Yeah.
And so we go to learn that pass, and it's like getting up toward light speed. You make it more and more invisible. But the closer you get to invisibility, the further it seems away. And that can happen for 10 or 20 years if you are hard-headed enough. But the ultimate thing is you're getting to a place where your map of magic, your theory of what's happening, no longer can withstand the data you're getting.
Yeah.
And when that data you're getting, what it's telling you is the invisible pass you saw was an effect. It wasn't a sleight demonstration. You felt it was invisible because the person who did it understands the craft of slicing your attention so fine that you would swear in a court of law that you were watching the hands. And of course, you were watching. You saw it all. But your attention within that frame was split. And when your attention is split just the right way for just that half a beat, you would swear that what you saw was something that didn't happen. But all of these principles are so deceptive. They're principles of deception. And it's very rare for us not to be deceived by some element of them, even during a year or two of study, is my feeling. That's how I look at what you're saying.
It's so true. I remember, on top of that, I think there's also this Emperor's New Clothes thing. Have you ever been, well, you would have, in a convention and everybody's talking about, they'll say, oh,
the hot thing.
Have you seen him do this? Have you seen him do this?
Yeah.
And it's so built up that when you see it, you almost don't even notice it because your expectation has already told you the story.
Yeah.
And then you may see a video of the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you see it later and go, oh. But it's like when a product comes out, everybody, walk into a convention and everybody, maybe a day later than everybody else because you had a gig, and everybody goes, oh, you've got to see this. And whoever's just come out with this new thing. And you're so built up when you see it that you buy it without really thinking about whether you want it or whether it's any good, or you're just like, you're caught up in it.
That happened to me at FISM several times. Yeah. Yeah. Years ago. It was 20 years ago, but yeah. I think the other big thing that we're circling around, and this is something we end up covering in the class, is that, we both talked about submitting to the experience of magic. I don't know about you, but that took me about 20 years. You think like a regular person. Within about 6 months of getting interested in magic when you get bitten really hard, within 6 months, you give over your regular person's mind and trade it for your unprocessed magician's viewpoint.
Yeah.
And then you don't submit to being entertained for 10 or 20 years until you get so far from the experience you're trying to deliver, and you're so deep in the weeds of the passion for magic that you begin to get to the place where these initial theories about how it works break down, and you begin to understand that presentation isn't a spice you can add on top of a thing to get a little flavor, or misdirection isn't a tactic you use when necessary, right? It's actually a living, breathing attention management reality that your job is it's not asleep except for when sleights are going to happen.
Yeah.
It's happening all the time, or else you can't build it so that they hide sleights, because then that's the interruption of the pattern, that now all of a sudden you're looking at me. Why I was looking at my hands, I'm looking at my pans. I read that in the book. I have to look at your eyes before I do the pass. So now I look at your eyes, and it's like, why are you looking at me now? It's shady and it feels wrong. So as that starts to collapse on you in every way, you're forced to realize that you have forgotten entirely what it's like to watch magic. And then you begin to submit, because at the end of the day, if you can't go on the ride with people, how can you learn to drive a bus?
Good afternoon, fellow conjurers, and welcome to Volume 1 of my lecture tapes. I'm going to kick off with a nice little effect I call the Kings of the Ancient. I think it will play well to a high school prom, more like a work stew. Can you be quiet now, please? I'm doing my program.
So I want to go back to Conjuror Community because it's important to me, and it's linked to this, by the way. When I started I launched a thing called Card Magic Course in 2013.
Okay.
And it was a one-off, £35. I just wanted to put all the moves I knew, just to say to people, look, if you know all these moves, you can put together your tricks. It was just a thing.
Pay for that microphone.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. But I think the inspiration was my friend Peter Wardell, who'd done a different thing, introduced me to Optimize Press, this bit of software at the time. But you, what year did you launch your community?
Well, I was teaching what became my supergroup Sunday sessions by 2013.
Yeah.
And in 2014, my dear friend, a great magician, a lot of people had his tricks that came out from Illusionist at the time, Adam Grace, and I decided to join forces. We'd always been dear friends. We moved out to LA together at the turn of the century and in the aughts. And we got together and built those initial sessions, those initial 10 sessions that I was teaching to that group at the time, which was my first attempt I'd done something called Pathways with Penguin, which was about stage learning and technique. And it showed you how passes and poems are the direct outgrowth of the habits and techniques you build and how you scope them, how you have to learn. It's just in the same way you can't learn algebra until you learn addition and subtraction. So instead of just giving it to you and letting the poor sucker wallow around in his own upset, you actually lay out that curriculum so that people can build skills that stack into other skills. And then everything gets learned efficiently. And then you end up learning what you can be learning right now instead of something you don't even know how many skills you need to be even reading this right now, which is how poor schlubs like you and I had to do it with help from hopefully some friends. And I was now painfully aware that I had been talking about horizontal integration. I'd been talking about integrating your technique and learning how to move forward in it. What I wanted to do with all the things I'd learned how to teach, because when I showed up teaching in 2010 online, I thought it was going to be a bunch of people looking for half passes. But when I put my little shingle up, I discovered that the people who were calling me were lovely people. They were grown-ups. They didn't already know it all. They weren't in the magic community. I mean, a lot of people came in, as always, and classify themselves as intermediates looking for lessons. And it takes some time for them to begin to understand they would benefit from starting at the beginning so they can sew everything together. And what I learned was I want to teach vertical integration. I want to teach because, like I started to say earlier, we pick up Royal Road, we start learning our techniques. Over the years, we begin to discover we need to add presentation to the mix. We need to begin figuring out how attention management comes in. And what you find out, if you're really paying attention, is that it's likely that you built the technique with the mindset of a person who is thinking slight trick. And the technique you build that way isn't even designed to be misdirected if you wanted to. So nothing works together, like your phone and your computer and your keyboard are not on the same system. So that's what I was teaching in that course. And so Adam and I built that 3M course. And then we started Conjuror Community later that year. And the initial members were people who took that initial course. And ever since then, we've had this beautiful community growing. We have Wednesday night meetings. We have lecture every month. We have member hosted facilitated club nights where the members have all taken facilitation training with us. So everyone feels safe and everyone learns how to interface, in a way that's, because here's the thing. You can go to an IBM meeting, or I don't want to pick on the IBM, any club meeting of the sort we grew up in. And people would always used to say, I went to the club meetings, but there was no magic being done there. But in 2013, 7 years before COVID, few people wanted to get online to do magic. Now, I felt that considering the flights I took to Spain and Las Vegas and New York and Japan, that it would be a great thing to get to connect from wherever you are with whoever you need to hang out with. And that was a real opportunity. But the magic world at that moment wasn't into that yet. But what I noticed almost immediately was a couple things. One, when people go to a magic meeting online, you can't just fill it talking about cricket or baseball. People are there, they're grown-ups, they got a family, they got a job, they need their magic time to be something. So that helped. The other thing that we learned when we started having one night a month, we would have members come do stuff. And from the beginning, we tried to inculcate the idea that this is rehearsal. This is not a performance. This is a chance to get something up on its feet, go through that terrible, painful rehearsal process that a deadline allows you to do, and then get up and do a run through. And at first I was afraid that my peers would see what we were doing and feel like we were filling everybody with hot air because we would be supportive and kind, and we wouldn't follow their run through by telling them everything that was wrong. That wasn't our initial strategy. What people discovered over time was that by making people feel safe and supported and letting them get their sea legs, That's something that a good old empire like you would understand.
Yeah.
Get their sea legs. They would naturally build like a happy, and I learned this teaching at Magic Camp for 10 years. The kids learn so fast and they learn such incredible things so quickly. I began to say to myself, wow, couldn't adults benefit from counselors instead of a magic lecture? Couldn't adults benefit from having a non-hierarchical, because that's what summer camp is. It's a non-hierarchical relationship. Your mentors and counselors are older friends who are there to be supportive of big brother, big sister, and teach you in ways you can't learn at school because you're shacked up in the mountains together. And it was incredibly healthy and it was incredibly productive. So we felt like that's the kind of relationship we want to have with all of our magic friends. We want to be able to talk honestly. We want to talk supportively. And lo and behold, out there in the ego persona driven magic world, there are plenty of talented people who aren't necessarily trying to push a persona on you. There are plenty of people who are so talented, so masterful, and so not personally threatened by the fact that other people want to learn, that we could give these people an experience that feels better. And what we found is after those member mastermind cycles start, is after a person does it 3-4 times, they begin wanting to know what they might work on next. And lo and behold, if you're in a community where everyone knows how to give productive, supportive feedback, everyone is looking to help each other grow and shine. No one is looking to be the one that's special. You know, your teachers aren't up there saying, here, I'm special, kiss the ring. People can grow. And now it's 13 years later, and we've got members who now work at the castle and members who have beautiful close-up sets and stand-up sets. And, you know, I'm honored that I get to work with the members because it's a beautiful, beautiful thing. I mean, if you chat with anyone who's in the club, I think they find that they've got a very, 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 a group of guys and gals they wouldn't really trade in for anything.
Yeah, it's so. I've rarely talked like this because I think you're doing because you're about the same time, so you really inspired me back in the day. I didn't want to start a community, because you had one and I didn't have the bandwidth for it. I had a new baby, all this sort of stuff. So
wow.
Yeah, so I was just like, I can't continue. And it was in lockdown that I kind of relaunched, turned it from card magic course to online magic. And with that exact same kind of idea of, which I still struggle with myself as well, is that thing of when you show another magician something you're working on, eradicate that idea that it has to be good, because you're showing something you're working on. And it's hard to do, right? Because I'll say to my friend Stuart, I'll say I'm working on this, knowing that it's not ready. So knowing I'm not going to impress him in that way. But still, the minute I start, my head, if I'm not careful, goes into, right, I better do this well because I want him to enjoy the trick. It's like, so that thing of we're showing a work in progress and we all do it. We start doing it and we go, oh, sorry, flash then. And you start apologizing and you start sort of, even though you know that's what you're doing. And I think it takes training and practice to get into that headspace and learn to kind of undo the habits of, the minute I start showing you this thing, even though I've told you it's not ready, I really should make it good. Because obviously the harder you try, that's the big paradox, right? You start really trying. I mean, that's the shaky hand thing as well. You're over trying something that you don't usually have to think about. It's a bit like when you go to the doctors and they say, right, just relax. I'm going to take your pulse. And you know, well, you just told me to relax and I'm thinking about relaxing. So therefore I can't relax. It's all that stuff. And I think recently, since we connected, and I was like, I think it's because I looked at Search and Destroy, and I was like, I'd love to, and I get your emails, which are always great. I have done for so many years, in a good way. That I think recently I realised that some of the community wasn't as engaged. I was thinking, we're running these live sessions every week, so why is not in a great way? We've got a lovely community, but there's a lot of members of my community that don't come to the live sessions. And fine, most people, time changes and it's a difficult thing. They can watch them afterwards. But I think subconsciously part of me was going, oh, well, why aren't they turning up? I'm doing all this stuff. I wasn't thinking that way consciously. And then I realized it was me that wasn't committed. It was me that, because we do these things for a long time. I had gigs. I couldn't make a couple of weeks. So when I did turn up, I had stuff I was working on. And I was honest about that. But I think recently, after talking to you and a few other people in the last year and reading stuff, there's a big part of me that is now going, no, I really am recommitted to this, because it's a rare thing to be able to do this, right? It's a rare thing to be able to connect with a community on a regular basis when it is harder to travel for some of us because of various reasons since lockdown, and get to see those people that, take the work that you've done together and do their first gig or show their family member a trick for the first time. And they come back and they're super excited and they say, I didn't do it that well, but it was great, and that gives them that thing. And it's something that I think transcends ego. There's a bit of healthy ego involved, of course, but it's the other way. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this. It's going to be flawed, but now I've got a solid foundation to build on. Mm-hmm. And I think that comes from that not being the teacher that stands above the students. It's
and doesn't have anything to
we're
protect.
learning together. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, one thing that you said, it takes another thing that didn't happen overnight that's important is we have to learn how to be vulnerable, like you said. But it also helps if the people we're with also understand that the goal isn't to make themselves feel better by making you feel badly. My dream is destroying your dream. So that's a beautiful thing about the members of the club is they're, I don't know how to say it, emotionally mature people. So they all sort of get that. And one of the other things you learn, I've talked about this with Jonathan Neal, when you're a young magician, it's fun to sit in the back of the stage. He used to say he was sitting in the back of the stage with David Copperfield and a couple other guys, and they would sort of bag on the act, right? Because that long incubation period means that there's a very serious magician who's not ready to get up and do it yet. So we sit in the back and we know how they could do it better, and this is wrong and that's wrong, and we all make a lot of jokes and it's a lot of fun. But he also said that he realized during that time period, and this very much resonated with me, where he's hanging out with a bunch of guys doing that, but he's the one without an act. He's the one who, and everyone knows, all four of us are laughing, but three of us have an act. One of us is just doing that thing. And when you're doing that thing, and this is the important thing I want to mention, you begin to realize that it's not a woo-woo thing, cause and effect karma. You're creating the context by which, when you're backstage waiting to go on stage, you'll torture yourself because you project that everyone out there is doing what you were doing when you were out there, which is making snide comments and being too cool for school. And so the beautiful thing about chatting with you and other emotionally mature people who are not being terribly threatened by the humanity of us, all of us, is that once you start going easy on everyone else, you get to start going easy on yourself. And when you're going easy on yourself and everyone else, it becomes a lot less stressful. You don't have a lot of unpaid for baggage in your head when you're trying to go out there and work. So when you're with your community of friends, part of that difficulty of unwinding so that you can just show what you're working on is the fact that they may not be in a place where they understand that. And so you have to be getting around their baggage. And it's hard to do them both at once. So one of the things we try and do in the community is be clear about not just I'm just working on it, But hey, I'm just trying to string together the movements. Hey, I'm working a little bit on presentation. Or hey, I haven't thought about presentation. I'm simply trying to demonstrate the structure, and the presentation I'm going to use is Greeked in narrative pattern, which I won't be doing, you know? So what you're saying to people is, I'd like to talk a little bit about the structure and motivation of these movements. So that you're not just saying, because when you say to people, random magicians at a random club, this is something I'm just working on. Well, now you're setting yourself up to be a piñata in front of a bunch of people that may not even have the requisite understanding of the process to be helpful if they wanted to be, plus working with their own inner demons. Right? And so you're in a situation where you're going to have to filter that feedback through too many layers of uncooked beans. Whereas it's nice when you're in a group of people that are all sort of unified in our approach to how we receive each other.
There's such profundity. It's so profound, and I really want people to sit with that idea of being on stage and visualizing what you may have been, and those people out there that may be sitting there. I mean, there's routines that I haven't done for years before, which I've talked about a lot, that a few people told me, well, it doesn't make any sense. Or so kind of linking rings being one of them. I adore linking rings, and I've got a routine now that's mine, and it feels like me. And I know for a fact that even though a lot of people love it, there will be people there doing what I would have done many years ago. What linking rings, what that, And I think part of it is, as you say, being the person you would want them to be, but also accepting, and this is why posting stuff online has been very helpful, because when you post stuff online, it doesn't matter who you are, you're going to get people that don't like it. Fine. And you're also going to get people that may comment a snarky comment that will make you angry because they don't really understand what you've done. And it teaches you, I don't want to say thick skin because I'm not thick skinned in that way, but I used to get very, very upset when I do something that meant a lot to me and someone would just bag it, just dismiss it as crap. And it might have been, but to hear that was so hard. And now we have to understand that, and it's affected what I've posted online until quite recently. I go through periods where I feel a bit oversensitive about stuff and I kind of beat myself up and then get over myself. And I think a lot of us do, if we don't do it regularly, right? If we take a break from, say we haven't done a gig in a while because we've been doing other stuff, and we kind of, it sounds egotistical, but we kind of forget how good we are, that we've been doing this a long time, right? We know what we're doing. And I think that I'm not saying that people should just start posting all their stuff online because they might not be ready for what they may get. And I've seen awful stuff online, people being taken down, a young person sharing something they're working on and people just being awful and just thinking that person may never do that again because of that. So I'm not saying that, but I think it helps to know that, yeah, it's terrible, but you can't please all the people all the time. And I think if you have faith in what you're doing and you have those trusted people, I'll put everything past Helen that I post just because she can see it from a layperson's point of view, even though she knows a little bit. So I have 2 or 3 people like that, but working towards that thing of walking on stage or doing a trick and going, it's okay if some people are in there, if the people at the back are going to be doing that. That's more about them than me. It's a lot harder to do than say, but I think it's part of what we do.
I think when you're dealing with your growth and rehearsal process, I hear that you're a very serious coach and a very serious teacher, and so there's always going to be different points of view about that stuff. But I think a lot of people really do think in magic, a community of any kind is optional. But it's important to find people that you can trust, and it's important to be able to share your vulnerable work product to them safely. And I dare say that if you're a person that feels like maybe based on these things we're saying about there's plenty of people that know lots about magic, but they don't care about you. They don't know about your magic, and they aren't necessarily thinking about your best learning process. And that makes sense. They're not paid to. They're just, pardon me, assholes with opinions. And if you're gonna put your, I don't think it makes a lot of sense for people in that state of growth to put themselves in this position where they're asking for every unsolicited opinion about everything they're doing. I think it makes a lot more sense to find any kind of community, yours, mine, a great group of mates at the pub. It doesn't matter. The important thing is you're safe and you have people that care about you and aren't confused when it's time to talk about you, that they're really talking about them. Yeah. Now, if those people happen to know what they're doing, if those people happen to have a stated and verified mission of not making it about them, even better, right? Because at the end of the day, random opinions that are good about magic might be good, but they're almost always how, quote, I would do it.
Yeah.
My job when I'm watching a person isn't to think about how I would do it. It's to help you think about how you might do it. And it's a different thing, you know, it's a whole different focus. It's not just me trying to establish my expertise by declaring in a performative way what's wrong with some poor kid who didn't know enough not to share himself with a bunch of assholes. And that's a terrible thing. And then you can move forward, do your preparation, and take your next steps in whatever the next safe tacking forward step is. And then, of course, this is the other thing, because what we're talking about is so hard, you're not going to be good at it before you're bad at it. And being bad at it is better than not starting. So when you're at home, I haven't risked anything. I'm not putting myself on the line. And when I do, I'm going to be bad at it. Yes. But being bad at it, what I'm hearing from you, what you're hearing from me, and what we would all hear from any non-threatened grown-up in magic is that the grown-ups understand you're not going to be good before you're bad. The grown-ups weren't good before they were bad and don't really need to protect and hide that fact. And when they see you get up and do your bad show, the unthreatened grown-up thinks, good for you. That's a lot better than where you were last week, which was at home.
It reminds me of parenting.
It is.
Man, it's. I remember before I had a kid, with all my very human insecurities. Obviously, I had the worries and all that sort of stuff. But I thought there was part of me that thought, I'm a good person. I'm not going to be that parent that says that loses their shit at home and acts like an arsehole. And then I find myself, I remember being in Costco, right? I remember being in Costco with I think I was with my son, and he was like 3 years old. And he's kind of, running around and fucking about, and I'm tired, I'm just, and I remember talking to him. I can't remember what he said, but I always remember my internal response. And I said something to him, well, if you're going to do that, we'll have to go home, this sort of thing. He's 3 years old. And I remember stopping and saying to myself, what are you doing? Who is this?
What's wrong with me?
Trying to reason with a 3-year-old in a kind of, well, you should know better kind of way. And you just, and you realize that we've all got the capacity to, and I say this in inverted commas, be bad. It's not bad. It's a human thing. And when we can celebrate that and laugh at it and be who we are and know that that's part of the journey. I mean, even now I screw stuff up and and it's a funny story, right? It's just part of, and it means we're moving forward. So talking about all that, what's your situation at the moment? What is your day to day, non-magic as well?
I am in a loving, committed relationship. Had a couple deaths in the family, so I'm cleaning out a grandfather's home with my brother.
Oh, that's
going
good.
to a funeral next week. The summit, we had our convention this year, moved it to Baltimore, and it was great. We had 20 members out of the 100-person convention. We had 20 members performing on shows in addition to the talent. So, we had John Bannon and we had Mark D'Souza and we had Mike Kaminskis and we had Adam Elbaum. And we also had 20 members performing on shows, which makes it more like camp than ever before. And it makes me so happy and excited to have the talent come and see how passionate and committed these members are. They're not used to seeing a whole big subset of the audience are actually doing it. And the ones that aren't doing it yet are doing it. They're just in that pre-flowering stage where they're thinking about it and realizing how safe it is and moving toward it and meeting us online. So it's just this beautiful thing that is now sort of taking Conjuror Community, which has been in its own little incubator for 13 years, and slowly starting to merge it into the general population now that everyone's safe and ready. So that's happening. We're working on that all the time. I'm now inspired in part by your video. I've begun establishing a more workman-like attitude about writing. So before I met with you this morning, I did my budget of 500 words, and I'm doing that every day, which makes me very happy because it's something that's important for me to do, and it's also hard for me to do. It brings up all the insecurity that comes with being accepted or not, being judged or not, and the fact that in order for me to move forward, I have to make these lessons useful to people. So working on that. And, we've just had this for the last week. We had this free course, which was teaching a lot of these ideas about integration and helping people put together how many mysteries that solves. And we just opened registration for that literally yesterday or today. So that's open for another 5 days. And I'll get you a link, I guess, if people want to see.
Yeah,
that.
do, but say it now, Aaron, just in case it's
I can't say it now,
no.
unless we pause because I have to get it.
Oh,
But
cool.
but maybe I should.
We'll link it. And actually, this will go out. This won't go out for straight away anyway. So I'll definitely link it.
But the point is, we'll be teaching that for the next 6 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Into the holidays. So, and we also have Conjuror Community, and that's a really big thing. So people can join Conjuror Community Max for $5 a month. And in Conjuror Community Max, we have every Thursday, I teach a fundamental practice engine lesson where we're really in it with an ongoing group of people. Don't have necessarily a big budget, but it's a live session. We're working together. We create practice videos for everything. And it's an evolving group of people. And it's partially me and the cards and Alex Slemmer and Adam Grace, who are just tremendous magicians. Adam's my partner in the club. Alex is just an incredible teacher, and he works with the people on fundamental coin magic. And what's so beautiful about this program is that we're teaching people how to practice. When you give people a video and say, go learn it, you're leaving all of that up to them. But we get together every week. That's what I'm going to hop off and do after this conversation, because it's Thursday. We're actually in this evolving dialogue where we started at the very beginning a few months ago. And we're revisiting concepts and teaching people how to build uniformity and teaching people how to link these things together in the way it really happens, 1 week at a time. So it's not, a new lesson necessarily every day. We're really integrating everything and getting to teach people, a one coin routine is this incredibly deceptive, powerful, beautiful thing, which is incredibly daunting because you have to be able to do the whole thing in order to make one coin disappear and reappear 5 times and have that work. It's the difference between the simplicity of an expert and the simplicity of a beginner. But Alex is teaching that, and we are just in it together, and we're learning the fundamentals in a way that really mirrors how people who are busy can actually learn these things. So we're doing that Thursday afternoon. We're orchestrating our member meetings 4 nights a week. We have our Wednesday night lecture, club events. Sometimes we have a lot of fun doing the review shows. We do the member masterminds. We have lectures every month. And, it keeps me very busy. And at the same time, I accepted a lecture tour in France next year for the first time in 20 years. And going to work at the Chicago Magic Lounge and the IBM convention. So I get to build my act up again, which is very exciting. And it's a great time to do magic for real people. I'm planning on entertaining the kids on Halloween.
Right.
And that's what my life is. It's just trying to be a whole person, take care of my physical body, take care of my brain. And that's the thing. Like you said, it's like parenting. I have a family unit, and it's a beautiful family unit. But in terms of the club, I feel like I get to make a difference to a lot of people, and I get to be a real active part of their lives. And it's a big honor that they share with Adam and I and the rest of the CC gang. And we just try and be as helpful to them as we possibly can.
All I am is a big pudding that sat here. All I am is a big pudding that sat here. All I am is a big pudding that sat here. Smiling inanely. Smiling inanely. Smiling. Smiling. Smiling inanely. There's people in Piss Alley who looks like they're in much better form than you are.
It's interesting that we've never connected. Physically, because you're in the US and I'm in UK and kids and all that. That's understandable. But recently, I've been getting your emails for a long time. I remember I watched the Apollo Robbins sessions that you did, which were incredible.
Wasn't that amazing?
Oh man. It's just brilliant. And after this, I'm going to be watching a load more stuff. What I'm interested in as a selfish thing, but also because we're on very similar paths, I think. You mentioned you're very busy.
ADHD makes you feel that way.
Oh, have you got you as well? There you go.
Yeah, man. Terrible.
I thought so. We both go, we do this and this and this, and then we do this, and then we do it. And it's a gift and a curse. Exactly.
Yeah, it's a gift, but you got to learn how to use it with the other tools. Sorry, go ahead. We're lucky. You wanted to know?
We're lucky. No, I'm all right to stand up for a second. I think with ADHD, this idea, it's a superpower. It's like, but it causes a lot of issues.
If only it didn't. If only that it's like that old X-Men metaphor. It is a superpower, but it comes with a trade-off where you would really wish you had the other 10 normal powers that you need to get through life. You've got the superpower, but if you could also think linearly and focus for 6 hours at a time, you sometimes feel like that might be a good trade-off.
I'll tell you what, if I could be observed, the funniest thing I often hear is people say, "Oh, you've really got it together. You're really organized." And it's like I've always had the tools, right? I learned the personal development stuff and ended up running a training program, not realizing then that I had ADHD. And these tools are great for everybody, all right? It's because we're all multitasking, we're all doing stuff, but without them, none of this would be happening. And that's kind of what I was getting onto, tools-wise. How are you at managing your time? Do you have any personal development kind of models that you do? But that's the thing, right? Because people don't believe it. They go, what do you mean? It's terrible. You did this and you did that. But like my psychiatrist said when I was diagnosed, he said the poignant thing for him was what you've achieved in spite of it.
Yeah. When I was a little kid, I got A's in everything but work habits and behavior. But that was a generation where no one was going to give you any help for ADHD as a condition, or at least not in my house. So by the time I was in high school, I should have been preparing for university, but I was preparing for cardmanship. And I barely got into a college because I was too busy trying to get my work in Magic Magazine, So I turned 30 and I didn't know how to fry an egg. Over the years, I was rescued at some point by getting things done methodology in terms of tools.
Me too.
That was a big help to me. And now, it's working with all those things. It's a condition, and I need routine. I need to embrace routine. I need to embrace balance, and not high highs and low lows, but just steady as she goes, like that writing program I was telling you about. So I've used a lot of tools, but to me, the mindset is the most important thing, and a bunch of little hacks to make sure that I can use the thing that is whatever it is that's unique to me and somehow function and interface with the rest of the world around me. The other thing, Steve, I think is relevant is that with the phones, we're going to look back and see that these phones have wrecked everyone's mind. And when I see the way people are embracing AI, the large language models, well, those are powerful tools, but it seems to me that they're much easier to damage your brain with. It's not that you can't use them to sharpen your brain, but it requires that same learning mindset we learned from magic. You have to continually work against the gravity. We all follow the path of least resistance, and the path of least resistance in learning magic and something like these AI tools will all lead you to hell. It's like I've often said about dating applications when I was single. Your ability to use dating applications well is to be smart enough to work against the design of the system.
Yeah.
The magic system isn't designed to help you learn magic. It's designed to help you amass books that you can't decipher. You have to be able to use all those tools in a way that isn't necessarily in line with their intended purpose, which is to bleed you dry and have you buy some more.
It's so interesting, isn't it? And I'm always wary of saying what you just said, and I do say it, the phones and technology and what it's doing to us. Because, of course, without it, we wouldn't be doing this.
The effect of those things is that we're all having an attention deficit.
Yeah.
Everyone. So everyone's losing the ability to focus, losing the ability to maintain attention. And my sense is that ADHD is becoming the rule, not the exception.
I think so, yeah. The big dilemma, and it's a social dilemma, the thing, isn't it? But the big dilemma is what seems to be happening now is that, because it's about education, right? But that education, to work with that education of you have to be disciplined with the tools we have. A kid of a certain age, a young person, and me, don't worry about a kid of a certain age, me, that discipline takes a lot of energy. And that's the dilemma, right? They're here now. Nothing's going to change. I heard a thing about processed foods the other day, and it was a really interesting interview about processed foods. We know how bad they are, right? We know what they're doing to just generations of young people now, where it's getting more and more processed, but they're not going anywhere.
No.
So, and the education needs to be more than someone at school, a teacher telling you don't eat processed. There needs to be a more nuanced, and magic is a good metaphor for this, because it's a bit like Netflix. I used to love it when I used to go to the Blockbuster, and now comparatively there was such a small choice, and even then I'd be in there an hour and a half trying to choose, the holy grail of what I wanted to watch. So with Netflix now, I have to go to a different place. I have to go, right, that looks okay, bang, press play. That's the hack, right? The minute I get
I research it all off those sites, and then I go in and grab the one I want.
Yes, exactly. You don't get that analysis paralysis. And that's why with these books now behind me, and you can't see the show, but I have to just, right, I've got half an hour. I'm going to read something for me now. I literally have to just pick one, unless I'm looking for something in particular. It's a different thing. Right? But the joy from that, as opposed to the torture of being there for half an hour, realizing I've run out of time and not doing any of it, which happens quite often.
Well, that's what we do. I mean, that's one of the main, not to talk back about magic, we'll talk about other things, but one of the main things
about the magic
we focus on those Thursday programs and the practice engine. We know that folks don't practice with the ADHD drive, for example, I had or have or like to practice. It's soothing to me. And we know that it's not like that for everybody. We know that trying to figure out how to take that 1/2 an hour, you said it just right, that 1/2 an hour of you time. You got your family, you got your job, you got your personal care, you got your relationship maintenance, you got all that stuff that has to happen if you're a grown ass man, as they say. And so you've got maybe 20 minutes to yourself. And by the time that day is over, if you're working through this yourself, you spend your 25 minutes trying to figure out what to do with your 25 minutes. So what we're doing with the practice process is helping to get people so clear on what it is that they know what to do with 5 minutes. They don't have to think about it. You got 5 minutes, you do this, press play, do it with me in real time. You don't press rewind and watch your super practice session. We're going to practice for 5 minutes and we're going to explore these things together. And that's what we're trying to do with magic. When you talk about that process, one of my most fun things I've been able to do with the large language model is share with it my reading list, share with it my interests, share with it my favorites, share with it my frustrations about those things. And I'm finding the books I want to read. And it's a great way of doing that. It's a great way of finding out what you want to read. It's a great way of navigating the published record with a thought partner that has read the published record. And so whether it's a sci-fi novel that's not going to bore me to sleep, or a historical novel that's going to have the kind of detail I like, or if I want to, last night I was trying to find, I love John le Carré. He's my favorite. I watch Slow Horses, but I hate myself for watching it. And cause it's the closest I can get to what I like. And last night I was saying, let's find post-Empire English mindset outside espionage. And of course, I can find more of the, I guess I'm a closeted, not so closeted if I'm saying it here, Anglophile, right?
Yeah.
So, that's how I found Trollope. I love that Trollope. Have a harder time with Dickens. So for me to navigate those things, I couldn't do it with Google. Google won't help you with that. With Google, and this is something for you out there learning magic, you're going to find magic training from people who are very skilled at SEO, search engine optimization. And and in order to find the magic training you want, you're going to have to find people who know more about teaching magic and less about how to manipulate Google. And that's kind of one of the main hacks I like for that kind of thing, is I really like to, finding a good movie is hard.
Yeah. I know.
And I don't want I would rather spend an hour looking for the movie than waste 2 hours with the wrong movie.
I know. I'm with you. I'm with you. As a big film, I just spent 3 days with my friend Stuart, who edits this podcast, at a horror festival, and we watched 6 films a day, 5 or 6 films a day. And the lovely thing is, you had no choice. You had the same seat the way it works is you buy your seat, and that's your seat for the whole festival, right? So it was such a relief to not have to make a decision for 3 days. And not every film was good. There were some really bad films, but that's all right. That's part of the thing. It's a community. And I just think, and another thing, I'm sorry, I'm firing off with my ADHD brain now, just while I think about it. When you talk about practice, a couple of years ago, and I'm still going to review it, but he started a community now. There's a guy called Lado Ditmar, or Lado Ditmar, Laido, and he started a community around practice, and he was in Cirque du Soleil, and he wrote a book, started as an ebook, called, I think, The Art of Practice. I'll link to it. And I read it. And I said, look, a lot of my community are interested in this, so I'll buy it. I bought it anyway, the ebook. And I said, but I'd love to review it. And he said, well, I'm starting a training program around different performers or different artists, musicians. So wait, and we'll do something when that's up and running. So I read this book, and afterwards I was like, well, there's nothing really much in there. It's all stuff I kind of knew. And this was a couple of years ago, and it completely changed my life. That book. So I juggle every day for 2 hours, and in that juggling session, I take on these things, which are very simple. It's like, think about the things you actually want to practice. Do those at the beginning of the session, because what we tend to do is we sit there with a deck of cards, do a double lift for 2.5 hours, and then last half hour work on that difficult thing when we're exhausted and tired. And those practice sessions are so, I do exactly the same thing. I do my 8-ring contact juggling. I do the free club tricks that I'm working on that I can't do. I do 4 or 5 clubs, which I can't really do. And then the last 10 minutes is play. And in that time, I've got further in 2 years than I have in 25.
Mm-hmm.
And going back to, I did it with the Zarro shuffle the other day, right? I couldn't get my Zarro over years. I just couldn't get it. So I went back to the original source, the Zarro source, and just thought, what bit is it that I can't do out of that shuffle? And it was that the cards were beveling a bit. So 20 minutes just on that, nothing else. Just no, because if you think about it, it might just seem like a few seconds either side of that when I'm doing the shuffle, but over an hour, that's 2/3 of the time. And within 20 minutes, I'm not saying I nailed it, but I got closer than I had done in years. So
Mm-hmm.
that, and we don't want to take the fun out of it. It's not just about, sometimes it's fun to look at Netflix and sit there and just but it's knowing when that time is helpful to you, not just for learning the trick, but also for your happiness, for your contentness, for your joy, for what you need at that moment. And that self-awareness is sometimes helped by others, to kind of.
It's the whole game, because at the end of the day, what makes practice fun is feeling like you're improving. What makes practice fun is, hey, there's this great musical. I know that's a hard combination of words for people, great musical. But there's this musical called Sunday in the Park with George.
Right.
And George Surratt is painting this painting, and his wife is leaving him, or his lover is leaving him because he's busy painting. And she leaves him, and he doesn't notice. And he's singing a song called Look, I Made a Hat, because what he gave away his whole relationship for was painting what amounts to this realistic in the light looking hat in this giant canvas. And that always sort of reminds me of what feels so good about magic practice is you're building this beautiful little moment, and it's so intricate and beautiful, and no one's ever going to know how beautiful it is, but it gives you this incredible amount of joy to make this moment perfect. Because we can't be perfect, but we can achieve perfect moments.
Yeah.
And it's a beautiful thing. And since you're mentioning this, I was going to ask you about a horror movie I wanted to see.
Go on in.
But because I was going to ask you about Bring Her Back, but I haven't seen it yet. I just want to see it. But what really excited me recently was my favorite, probably author of all time, 2 or 3 favorites. I mentioned John le Carré, but my other favorite author of all time, and probably more important to me formatively, is Alan Moore.
Right.
The Wizard of Northampton. And he just released this class on Maestro about how to write.
Yeah. And,
those master classes are interesting in the United States, but they really are very info producty. But Alan Moore's not going to do anything like that.
Yeah.
If he's going to take the money, he's going to tell you as straight as he possibly can for 6 hours. No fluff. And I think that's a really, and this was something first shared with me from BJ Bueno before they started to track me through the funnel across the internet. But I have to say, what an amazing opportunity to get to, because I feel like when you get one of those things in the United States, you're getting really the equivalent of a vanity meet and greet with the expert. It's the equivalent of the old magic workshop at the convention where you pay $100 and you get to kiss the hem for 3 hours. Whereas I just feel like if we're going to do that and pay for Alan Moore's tuition, it's going to be a mind expanding opportunity to learn about art.
Absolutely. Have you started it yet? Have you looked at it?
I haven't. I've read everything he ever wrote. I mean, I wasn't able to read Jerusalem, but I read everything that's not like James Joyce,
Yeah.
I just, what he did with those characters, Miracle Man and Swamp Thing, and of course the big hit classics, but Swamp Thing in particular and Miracle Man are just two of the most perfect things ever written. Watchmen too. And those things really had a formative effect on me as a young person.
Yeah.
I only traded in my time with comics when I found the Royal Road to Card Magic, sold all my comics to get there. But that guy understands how to find the magic in every story. Yeah. And I just find it to be breathtaking.
I have found so much, and for years people would say, look outside of magic. And I'd be like, no, I'm learning my magic. And I've found it so inspiring, whether it's an explicit thing like, because I've watched a few of the masterclasses, and yeah, they are very much like that. But David Mamet does one, right? And he gave me, there's stuff in there that I went, I've never thought of it like that. So we're in a really healthy situation where we can spend time with people online, not with them. I mean, like, this is real time, but someone like Alan Moore doing that, where we can't not ingest something that's going to be joyful and going to help us grow and feed us in some way. They're going to bring her back. If you did,
I'd just like to say just let me tag that one thing. Just say one of the things about Mamet and Moore and anyone like that is masters at a certain stage have thought about it so much that they can make ideas simple enough to understand to the beginner. And it's a real opportunity to study a playwriting with Mamet or writing fiction with Alan Moore. It's just they've thought about it so much, they're gonna make it accessible to some degree, and they make it simple. So tell me, is Bring Her Back worth the energy?
Yeah, definitely.
It's terrifying.
It's I would say it's slightly less scary than Talk to Me. It's the same director. Have you seen Talk to Me?
No.
Oh, watch that, because that's the same filmmaker. Talk to Me.
That's the one. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. But Bring Her Back, I thought it was great. It's way over the top, but got some quite interesting meaning to it as well, I thought. Yeah, it's a really good watch if you're up for something a little bit extreme.
If it's good, here's what I told Chat talking about material. I don't care if it's a horror movie, and I don't care if it's Age of Innocence. I don't care. I just care that it's best in class. I care that it's got the detail and the respect for the audience. I agree. Like, one of the things they taught us in theater class is that when you're going to get 20 people on stage and 40 people to run the house, you simply can't do it for something that isn't worth putting up on stage. You have to respect your audience. And, Tamarice once told me, talking back to nerves and scariness, name drop, Tamarice once told me that, because I was terrified, and he saw how terrified I was. He told me, when I get scared on stage, I just try and remember that the intention is to give a gift to people. And if they don't like the gift, that's okay. At least it wasn't damaged in the giving. And I found that to be helpful, because we make it about us, what they think of us, how they feel about us. Do they like us? Do we like us? Yada, yada, yada. But the truth is, that's not the main thing. And if you keep in your mind that you respect the audience and you're there to give them something, you don't have to think about yourself so much. And I'm sure that's a lot of what Alan Moore's talking about too, because he doesn't coddle the audience. He respects the audience. And I think as magicians, that's what it all comes down to as well. You just have to respect the audience.
Great. I think that's a perfect place to tie it up. And it's just been such a joy, as was expected. I was really looking forward to this today, and it's delivered in spades. So thank you so much. Where can people find?
I have links for you.
Yeah. Okay. So we'll say them out loud, but for anybody listening, I will probably share them even before the podcast goes out, to be honest.
Yeah.
I can do that.
Well, we only teach the 3M course once a year. We talked about a lot today. You missed the free course that comes before it, but if you happen to see this before next Tuesday, you can go to miraclemagic.com/offer/secret-of-no-fail-magic-VSL, which is pretty terrible, as a link. And we'll post that, and just know that we actually have a 60-day money-back guarantee. So you literally can take the whole course, and if it doesn't deliver for you, just return it. You have my word on it. There's less than 2% of the people every year that do that. We're very proud of it. Max, that's our CC Club Max. We're at the Thursday live session, and great magic that we put for you there every month. $5. That's club.conjuror, CONJUROR.community/CC-max. And we also have club.conjuror.community/live-total-access. And that's the full club experience. We'll put those links on the site for you.
Yeah.
And, honestly, I really appreciate you giving me a chance to talk with you, Steve. It was a real mind-expanding, exciting conversation for me. I learned things, and I had every bit as much fun talking to you as you could have possibly had talking to me.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I'll top and tail this anyway, but I will say to people, check out the Paper Engine. There's a lot out there about that. That's why I didn't do it, but it's a stunning book, and it's just been re-released quite recently. It's just full of gold. And your individual Search and Destroy DVD, Panic, I watched the trailer of, and now I want to get it because I don't have Panic.
You'll use it. If you ever do close-up anymore, you'll use it.
I know I will. I saw it, and just because I know the style of your stuff, and I know it's going to be usable, so I'm going to delve into that. So thank you so much. I'll pretend to go now, but hang out for a couple of minutes afterwards. The screen will go blank. But thank you so much for your time. Lovely Aaron Fisher.
So thanks to Aaron Fisher. What a lovely conversation. Like I said, I do feel like I've got a new friend in my life. That's 3 now. That's good, isn't it? And I'm excited to sort of see because I haven't checked into the conjuring community for a long time. So I'm excited to get back into that as well, because I'm really getting back into practicing magic again, just for fun and not just for work. Isn't that lovely? So thanks for listening. Like I said, if you could review this, share it, do anything you can, that would just make me very, very happy. I'll probably end up thanking you personally. That's what I'll do. If I get one of them, and if I miss it, let me know you've done it. Steve@onlinemagic.co. Do check out onlinemagic.co. Like I said, if you're listening to this, if it does go out before the weekend, I can't imagine it will, but if it did, have a look at that Black Friday deal. stevefaulkner.com, faulkner.com/Black Friday, one word, -magic. That was it, wasn't it? Anyway. So, my brain is mush, as it always is. Have a good one. Instagram @Steve Faulkner, @Real Magic Review, Facebook Steve Faulkner's with a apostrophe magic. Take care. See you later. Bye.